Camp Craft Challenge, and today we are joined by Patrick from Siser, and we are going to do sublimation on glitter in a pretty unique way. So if you've ever done sublimation on glitter and you're super frustrated with lining it up, you're going to love this live. So
I am really excited to learn this technique because I've watched the video that you did, but I have not actually done it myself. So,
well, first, thank you so much for supporting the channel. I appreciate that. Yeah, this was a method. You know what we launched a video a few years back now, that was kind of showing this new two-step method that was out there, where you would take your material, you basically pre-cut your contour out of your glitter or whatever material you're going to sublimate on, and it really came about with Easy Subli, where folks found it easier to just contour cut your image, grab your sublimation print, and line them up. But what we found out is that obviously made it a little bit tough to make sure that that alignment was perfect every time. So everybody has their own ways. You add a bleed, you know, you fill in the color where you can, but we all know we're faking it. So like, instead of faking it, we were kind of playing around one day with, you know, obviously the Romeo and the Juliet at the time, and we found out that we could cut with glitter, even if it was sublimated, and have a registration mark. So that's kind of where this whole technique even came from. It was just finding an even faster way to make, you know, registration of your sublimation prints even better. So yeah, so this would be a fun one. I'm excited to kind of show you guys step by step as well.
yeah, so this is a great way to sublimate if you want to sublimate on cotton, dark colors, and you're struggling with that. This is one solution that looks amazing as well. So if you are joining us for this live, you can drop into the live chat at any time and ask any questions that you have. This is super casual. We're just going to like chat along. We'll stop for questions as we go. And we just want you to learn something from this and learn a little bit about Siser products along the way.
Awesome. Awesome.
So do you want to tell us what we need first of all?
Yes. All right. So there's a couple of different things you need. Number one, this works with any of the Siser sublimatable material. So over on our website at siserna.com, if you go under the materials tab, there's a option that says sublimation, and that will give you the laundry list of heat transfer materials that you can use this same exact process for to accomplish it. But today I'm going to actually use some rainbow white glitter, which, as most of you know, like, glitter is obviously the bling. That's like the staple of crafters is number one glitter, but also I feel like the rainbow white glitter specifically, because the regular glitter, we'll all say it just between us girls in the live and the people watching, is like the regular one with like the little black speckles or gray speckles is great, but like this really pops. So what I love about this too is we're going to utilize this. I also have for this project your favorite sublimation paper. Okay, so I use A-Sub paper. I like the vibrancy. I like the color the best. So that's why I'm using this one. And just a regular a sublimation printer. Whether you have a Sawgrass and you're spending top dollar for your sub printer, or you have something like an Epson, a Canon, a Brother, Corey, a Brother, you know, if you have those types of printers, you know, you can do this basically the same step. But here's the big difference that I think a lot of people are going to be slightly confused when we go through this process, is that if I hop on in the overhead here, you can see that my sublimation page actually has my registration marks. Has my registration mark already kind of built in. So what I've actually done is, not only did we create our sublimation design, but we're actually just printing the registration marks directly onto it, sublimating that onto our heat transfer material, which in this case will be our rainbow white glitter, and then our cutter is able to find those registration marks and just cut like a normal heat transfer vinyl, as opposed to having to then cut this out and try to align it. And we all know that it can be a huge mess. So what you basically need is simple: sublimation paper, your favorite heat transfer vinyl, a cutter of your choice. As you can see, I have not put the Juliet in frame as of just yet, but your favorite cutter of choice, and then, you know, a little can-do attitude. So I want to hop into Leonardo, if that's okay, which will work with all of your normal softwares that you have. Everything I'm going to show you, you can do on your own. But going into Leonardo, the first thing that I want to do, and hold on, I'm just going to adjust this page size really quick. The first thing that I want to do is I'm just going to import this design. And I have this fun design that I found at Creative Fabrica. Open it up, and I'm going to go through whatever software you're using. We're just going to go step by step through your print, then cut screens. Okay, so if your software has designated module like Leonardo does, awesome. If your software has, like Silhouette, you'll usually import it to your actual art board. Then you'll be able to actually clip out and mask all of your design. And then Cricut, I believe you import and then you create the print and cut after, right?
Yep. So you're going to import it and remove the background. Yep.
Perfect. Perfect. So I'm just going through my basic navigation. So in Leonardo, while we're here, I'll explain a couple of them. You can include your holes, remove the holes from your designs and all that stuff right from this screen. You can also create a contour offset. The reason why I bring this up, though, for the audience is that in Leonardo, you can actually create, and I always recommend, regardless of what software you're using, if you're doing a print and cut image, utilize your own software's inset option if they have that. And the reason being is that even though we're not going to bring that line all the way into the design itself to try to cut up as much of that color as we can, by bringing that in ever so slightly, even if your home cutting system has a slight miscalibration, this will also save you a lot. And typically what most people are used to is adding that bleed like we discussed. But this way, it just kind of keeps you safe, makes it easier. I feel like you can bring that line in just a little bit. You don't have to worry about adding anything new to it. So from there, all I'm going to do is set up my artwork however I want. This is where you guys have total freedom to do, whatever you want with that piece of artwork. But I'm just going to set this width to 8 inches, and then I'm going to align that center. So from there, we're good. Or as I like to say, we're Gucci. We're good. Everything's good to go, and we're ready to kind of move on to the next step. The next step simply would be print this out on your A-sub paper or whatever sublimation paper you want, and then we'll kind of take you through the next steps here in a second. So yeah, so that's the basic navigation or simple navigation through the software to get us to there. Once we've printed our image onto sublimation paper, like I kind of showed you already, you're going to see that it looks not only a little dull, because as you guys know, especially as sublimators, you know that your color comes out a little dull when you heat apply it. Once it gases out, that's where you get a lot more color vibrancy. But if you notice, this image is actually cut mirrored. Here's another reason. When we're working with something like an easy color DTV or a print then cut type material, we treat it typically the same way you would treat cutting like a sticker. Usually you want to be able to see and read what you're obviously creating. Well, sublimation kind of works the same way, but because we have to print on a sheet and then apply it to a material, we need to make sure it's reversed so that when we go to print that out, when we go to actually sublimate our material, we know that now everything's going to be flipped and readable for us, which will just help with the process of our registration marks and actually creating this project. So do you think I should press one of these out and see if I get a good vibrant color from it?
Maybe. And we can press ours too, maybe at the same time. I have to turn my heat press on.
I didn't have to turn it on. I had to turn mine on like right before because I totally forgot.
It's live. It's fine.
I muted myself because mine was beeping.
Oh, is it? I said right before the live, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen live.
My design is these little rainbow books.
Ooh.
I got that off Etsy today.
So mine is a bunny ghost. And this one's from Creative Fabric as well.
Oh, nice. Okay, I like it. Yeah, they have a lot of really great designs and artwork on the website.
So for anyone that's wondering, I tested this entire process out with a Cricut machine. So if you are watching my channel and you're like, but I have a Cricut machine and Patrick has a Juliet, this is going to work on a Cricut, and I'm going to make mine. Corey and I are going to make ours with a Cricut as we go along.
That's perfect. And hence why I say too, when I talk about, I love obviously showing Juliet, Romeo, and Leonardo, but I always try when we're doing these of like, guys, whatever home cutting system you have, as long as that optical eye can read the registration mark, it's going to work. You're fine. You're fine. So we've had mixed results. We've had some people that have said that it hasn't worked with whether they're Silhouette or their Cricut or their brother Scan and Cut. But you had actually gave a really good pro tip, Angie, that you said it should be what model or higher?
Yeah,
that's the new optical eye that they have.
The Cricut Explore Air 2 and earlier had like a different print and cut sensor. So starting with, I think the Maker, Corey.
Yes, I think it was the Maker. And then I think it got better. I think it got even better on the 3 Series machine.
I feel like it did too. So we're both going to use 3 Series machines, Explore 3s. So I would say Explore 3 and Maker 3, I would definitely say would work with this. Yeah. Maker possibly, but definitely if you have like an Explore Air 2, I'm going to doubt that it will work with this method. The print and cut sensor just is not as good as on the newer machines.
And if you're struggling, you can always change the way the light is entering your Cricut. So sometimes that optical sensor needs like the light to come in at a different angle. It needs more light. You know, you can kind of shift around the direction that your Cricut is facing, you know, compared to what light you have. And sometimes I've even used a flashlight on the old Explorer too. So that's
I would be remiss though if I didn't say one of the benefits of Romeo and Juliet as my only sales opportunity here. I promise I won't, no more plugging. But you do have the ability to adjust that light. And that was one reason why we added that in, because we know for a lot of you guys out there that may be using Cricut or Silhouette or having to do special things to actually make these work, we wanted to make it more convenient. So having the onboard high def camera is one thing, but also having the ability, having the ability for you to be able to adjust that light no matter what environment you're in. I think it was the really big win for us in making this work really well. Yeah. For sure.
What is Romeo? Romeo is Caesar's cutter.
Romeo and Juliet. So now he gets a sales opportunity to pull that out.
There we go. See, you plugged it, not me. This time I didn't plug this. So this is the Romeo high definition cutter, which is a cutter we have here at Siser. And then the Juliet in all her beauty is sitting over here. We're going to actually use the Juliet to cut today as well. So two options that we've brought out a couple years back into the market. With a really sophisticated software that's allowing us to really change the way that we're crafting and the way that we're doing things, making things faster, more precise, more accurate. So I will say that next up on our list of content is I am doing a true honest, and this is actually a lot to do with both of you, because I know that you guys have done this in the past. I'm doing a very honest, true review of Juliet and how it actually stacks up to Cricut and Silhouette, and posting it on our channel, like on a public company channel, which is a new thing, but I'm excited about it because it's nice to be able to show that stuff, especially there are some things that are good and bad and all. So I want to be able to highlight everything. So coming soon.
I asked a few days ago on my channel about the Siser cutters and I got a positive response. So we'll see. There might be something coming as well on that.
Oh, all right. I like. All right. So really quick.
There were some questions about the print itself, the sublimation print. So this is sublimation ink printed on a sublimation printer. And what I did is when I went to print it in my print settings, I mirrored it. So the print is mirrored.
Yeah.
And we're going to fix that in a minute for the cutting portion, but the print itself is mirrored at this point before we pressed.
Yeah. And I think that that's a point of confusion for a lot of people when we are, like Angie said, like I had kind of explained, when you're printing it first, you're printing it in reverse so that when you go to apply it, it is then registered the appropriate way. So I know this seems like an interesting step to some people, or you're asking yourself, what the heck are you doing? I promise you by the end of this, you're going to know exactly what path to take. So we'll be good. I do want to make mention though, because we're using a heat transfer material, as most people know, that with heat transfer vinyls, you have an adhesive side to it. You also have a carrier side that helps hold the material into place so that when we are cutting out our design and we go to weed and then transfer that design, we now know that carrier, that sticky carrier, will hold it there. So what we need to do for this one, because we are wanting to print on the skin or the face of this material, we will want to peel away that carrier so that we just have basically that raw material. And I can feel all the little glitter flakes and everything like that. And then you have your adhesive side back there. So this will actually be the portion of our material that we will sublimate onto. But this, I do say for everyone that's watching, keep this to the side, because I'm going to show you exactly why you want to keep this after the fact, okay? So really quick, I just want to show the kind of the process of what's going to happen on the heat press behind me. So I'm going to take my heat transfer material. This right here is my glitter side. This is my adhesive side. I'm going to use a piece of parchment, or not parchment, I'm sorry, Teflon style cover sheet, okay? So grill paper, the Teflon stuff. You don't want to use parchment paper. And the reason why is that this actually has tendency, this can stick to your parchment paper, much like regular paper, because there is a heat transferable adhesive. So we want to use a non-stick sheet, Teflon style cover sheet. We'll then put our sublimation print, or I'm sorry, not our sublimation, our heat transfer material adhesive side down on our press. And then we'll take our sublimation print, we'll go ahead and flip it on over, and then we're going to apply that for about 40 seconds at right around 380 to 390 degrees, okay? So I just want to make sure that I mention that as I'm working in the back here so everybody can kind of understand what we're doing. So again, cover sheet here, I'm going to apply that or put that on my heat press. Take my heat transfer material, which I've already removed the carrier from. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and put that on my heat press. And then from there, I'll then take my print that is again mirrored, and then we'll put that directly on top. And the only last thing that I really have to do is just simply cover this. Now, this portion can be covered with just regular parchment paper. Really, this is just to protect your upper platen. So we don't want any of that dye to bleed through the sublimation paper and then obviously dye the upper platen. So parchment paper will help to like circumvent that and stop it from happening. So, and right here, I have also a conventional heat press. Like I have just a standard clam style. Angie, are you using an hand press right now?
I am. So I'm going
Nice.
to
Okay.
pull that up.
So that's a good note to know that it works.
I'm going to use the Easy Press, and it worked. My print was a little larger, and so I pressed it twice, and it worked fine. So if you just have an Easy Press, this technique will work as well.
Perfect. Yeah, that's good to know that you have options.
380 for 40 seconds?
Yeah, so I did between 380 to 390 degrees for about 30 to 40 seconds. I cut the difference at 35, but
okay.
Yeah.
This is not in the right place for me to.
All righty. So now for me, right now, I just pulled my print off, and I'm actually going to grab this whole thing together so you can see all the layers kind of reverse now, and you're going to get a really good visual of this print. So first thing is I'm removing my parchment paper layer. Okay. You guys can see kind of through the page now that we can read this design. So if I pull that up, you'll be able to see there's my print. And here's something that's kind of cool that I found out. So on this side of my print, you can see that I'm obviously getting a little bit of faded print here, which means that either my heat source wasn't perfect in this section, or I had some ghosting or whatever it may be. But the cool thing is with that is even with this having a little bit of a faded registration mark, we'll still be able to read this and be able to still accomplish this cut altogether. Might take a couple little boop bops and beeps to make it happen, but we'll make it happen. And I'll just take this off too so you can see. So I'm letting my material cool all the way down, and then I'll be able to peel it directly off of my Teflon sheet. So now I have my page that's separated, and I have my adhesive side, and I have my sublimated side. So this will be another good side by side. The print before I started basically hinged it to then be readable once I'm done. Cool.
Okay, y'all. I totally did not use my sublimation printer when I printed this.
Oh no! The marker. Do you have markers though?
Why didn't this work? I'm just gonna print it real quick.
That's all right.
I was like, why didn't this transfer? Guys,
that's what a live video is for, right there. Is for you to not have done the right.
That's what we said. If it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen live.
I literally was like, what did I do wrong?
All right. Well, while we're waiting for that print, do we have questions too that came in?
I was just going to make sure. I feel like I don't see any. So if anyone has any questions, like that's the major part of this whole process.
Yeah.
Like you want to be sure you get that right. So print a sublimation print. Don't do a Corey, and then print it mirrored. Press it to the glitter side of your HTV. Yeah. So that it is hysterical that Corey.
When I tell you I've been having a week.
Yeah, you've been having
and
a
I
week,
keep thinking it's Friday and it's Tuesday.
And mine pressed fine, and it cooled super quick. So
yeah, that's the other thing too. I think a lot of people, when we say, you know, and I hear you guys say it in tutorials and stuff, it's like let it cool down. I feel like most people don't know what we mean by that. Some materials take a few short seconds. Some materials might take a little longer. If you're sublimating, let's say on a metal blank, obviously that's going to take a little bit longer to cool down than if you're using regular heat transfer. Remember, part of that heat transfer attribute is it helps disperse that heat as well. So it will cool off a lot faster as normal because the material wants to cool down as quick as it can so that fabric or that adhesive can bond to the fabric, right?
So, and then someone asked about a handheld press. I just used this little Cricut Easy Press, and I just had to press twice because it was so big, and it worked great.
That's perfect. Yes, and you got a really nice print out of it too.
Yeah, you can use just a small handheld press. Don't have to have a heat press. Question now, Patrick, though. Do we turn our heat press down for the second portion?
So, okay, so here's another thing. Oh, well, really quick, Johan did correct me really fast. You can also use a cooking sheet to help cool off for a few seconds. So if you have a cooking sheet or if you have a cooling block of any kind, definitely utilize that on the press, which will help cool your environment down faster. Okay, sorry. Question. What was the question on that side?
Do we turn our heat press down at this point? I'm thinking
No.
yes. No?
No.
Okay.
So here's the cool part is that although we have the heat up a little bit, there's a rule of thumb here. If we're increasing the temperature, we decrease the time. If we're increasing if we're decreasing the temp, we're going to increase the time. So for this one, we're going to actually heat apply this for about 5 or 6 seconds once we're done. And remember, we've already applied, and you'll notice too, you'll be able to see more than they'll be able to see it on camera, but you can see that adhesive has already started to bake. One of the fun parts about it too, I wish I had a plate. Oh, this might work.
Let me see if I can. I'm not
If
sure
you've
how it'll show up.
if you've also heated up your adhesive, you can't really see it on this side, but I can literally like stick this to a wall.
So it just like starts to adhere, but it peels off the Teflon fine. So it'll still be.
Think about it like this. Think about it like this. Adhesive is a thin layer of adhesive laid out onto something. It'd be the same if you were to do it with paint. Simply what we're doing is when we're heating it up, we're boiling that paint for a little while, and it doesn't affect the adhesive. So everything will apply just fine, but that's why you'll kind of makes it look like, I don't know, modulated a little bit. Yeah. If you're applying on a polyester fabric, you do want to lower the heat press temp. Yeah, that's a good point that Johan just made. If we're working on polyester, because those synthetic fabrics do hold heat quite a bit, that's when you definitely want to lower the actual heat or the pressure itself.
And then Chris asked, so the HTV will still stick on the blank? Yes. So it peeled off. There's nothing left on this Teflon sheet when I peeled it off. There's nothing left. All the adhesive is still on this piece of HTV. So it is going to stick to your blank just fine.
Yep. And actually, that's what I'll go ahead and do right now. So I'm going to show you kind of the next pieces of the puzzle. This is how we're going to keep our heat transfer. Oh, sorry, Corey.
I was going to say, look, I did it right.
Hey, she made it.
Nobody's going to come to me for crafting advice these days. I'm just like, I don't know.
If anybody out there is looking for custom sublimation prints, it may be inkjet, it may be sub ink, but
we just don't know.
So Patrick, one more question that I don't know the answer to. Someone is asking if you should mirror it in the Siser software. I mirror it in print settings, but should you mirror it in the Siser software? So
here's the really quick, easy way, and I'll actually show this in software again too, just because I didn't get to show you the full print through.
Yep.
In Leonardo, when I have my print ready, I'm going to keep this unmirrored for now. Okay. When I go into that send design menu, one of the fun parts about Leonardo is I have a mirror option right here, regardless of my printer settings. So I can hit mirror and mirror my images quick. Same with my cut line. So what I'll do is I'll print this mirrored, or a lot of you at home too, your sublimation printers, I do know that they print mirrored by default. So for you, you won't even have to touch the mirror option because your printer will naturally mirror it. And then now you have the appropriate orientation already on screen. But I do everything manual because sometimes I'm working with an Epson and maybe they don't mirror every time, or I'll keep my default settings, So again, mirror your print. And then when you actually get to the cutting step, which we'll get here to in a second, is you're going to unmirror this because that will, based on your registration marks, will show the appropriate orientation. However, it's another thing that I want to make sure is clear for everybody. For the best results, regardless of what software you're using, making sure that this image is centered to your page so that when you mirror and then unmirror, the orientation of your actual design does not change. If that makes sense. I'll say that one more time, is that we want to make sure that it's center to the page. So centered horizontally and vertically, because we don't want to get into a situation where we'll go ahead and send our design over. We send the mirror design with not that part of the image. There we go. We don't want to send part of it where part of our design is too high and now it's uneven or it's not going to register appropriately. Okay. So I just like to make sure that point's there. Make sure that you're centering your design. Make sure the other thing too is that after I'm done printing, don't touch your artwork. If you've made a mistake, reprint it, because if I were to come in here now and make this smaller, then go to try to register this, no matter what software, what cutter you have, it's going to scream at you and say, hey, you can't do that. All right. So those are two really important pro tips to make sure, is that centering your design to your registration marks. So no matter which way you flip it, it's going to work appropriately. And then also making sure that you're not rescaling your design after you've already print, because then your actual cut won't come out appropriately.
And then someone asked, what is Leonardo? And Leonardo is the software, the Siser software that is used for the Juliet and Romeo cutters. So just
correct.
Yep.
Yep. And if anybody is interested, shameless plug again. Sorry, I'm plugging everything now. You can go to CaesarNA.com. You can go to the Leonardo tab, and you can actually try the software for absolutely free. So if you are somebody that's looking at other softwares, or you might say, hey, I might want to try something new, it's free for you to try. Don't have to worry about it. So good opportunity for anybody that's looking for that. All righty. Do you want me to get on? Should we get on to the cutting now, or do we got any other questions coming in?
I think we can get on to the cutting. Corey asked, is on the Cricut has an arrow now from the registration marks. Is that a problem? It is not a problem. I'm using the one with the arrow, and I'll show you that it'll cut fine.
Yep. And by the arrow, just like a little indicator?
Yep, I can show you. They changed it a little bit here. So I was adding this print to my mat. So there's an arrow up here, and it's basically just so that you put that in the right location on the mat. So for Cricut, I mirrored this when printing, and then once we pressed it, it's not mirrored anymore. And there's a little arrow still up in the corner. It's still going to go upper left-hand side.
Okay.
And my camera, I need to fix it and mirror it, but yeah.
That's all right. I did the same thing before we started. You actually saved me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I will say though, those registration marks look great. And I'm glad that they came after our launch. I'm just going to throw, little shade out into the live.
Yes. It's okay. We understand your shade. I fixed my camera now. Oh no, we lost Patrick.
Oh no. I said that like it was.
There he is.
Phew. We lost you for a second. Patrick.
Let him get his audio back on.
Am I here?
Yeah.
Am I back or am I fake back now?
You're back.
Okay, cool. I'll take that. All right. So the good news is my computer is completely black. So I can't see Leonardo, but I can see it on my monitor. So we're good to go. We're going to make it work, guys.
When I said that these are really casual, this is what I meant.
This is exactly it. And I appreciate that. All right. So I want to show you really quickly how to actually stabilize your print when we get into the actual cutting steps too. So with that, this is the standard carrier. This is just the regular carrier sheet that came with the material that we ripped off. So I'm going to lay that down, and I'm going to lay this down adhesive side up. So you guys can see that I can pick it up from the adhesive. And what I'm going to do for my print is I'm just going to carefully, I want to just line this back up with the carrier sheet, adhesive side to adhesive side. So here's the adhesive side to my heat transfer material. Here's the adhesive side to my carrier. We're just going to marry those two together. And this is going to do two things for me. I'm just going to kind of give it a little bit of a tap down. Number one, this is going to, most importantly, it's going to keep all my material in place. So if I do have a lot of cavities to my design, this will allow me to cut out all those cavities, weed them, and be able to, transfer it. The other thing is this adds a lot of stability to the actual cut. So when we get to the cutting phase, if I were to just put this on a mat, glitter has a tendency at high heat to be a little gummy. So it can have a tendency to gum up a little bit. So we'll throw it back on the carrier to keep that in one place. And this also saves your cutting mat, just so you guys know, as a little pro tip. If we throw a piece of the carrier on the actual mat, we're actually going to preserve some of that mat, and we'll have less likely for some of that glitter to flake off on our mat too, which is kind of nice. It's like that's like the secondary pro tip to it. But now that I have my print done,
prevent you from cutting into your mat if you accidentally choose the wrong cut setting. So I did not do this last time. I did not cut into my mat, but I was very worried.
I got you. So the next thing I'm going to do is for this particular design. Let me actually make sure this is. I was doing this on the overhead and watching the overhead instead of what I was doing. So let me make sure that's even. Because another pro tip, guys, make sure that your prints are even on your page. Because then, what's the point of registration marks if it's not even the right orientation?
One of my registration marks is ever so slightly blurry. So we're going to see if this works.
Okay. And that's what I was saying too. You can see this one is like, I can barely see this right now.
Mine's just being a little, I don't know. You can't see it in the tiny.
Yeah. Yes.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
So we're going to see. Huh?
We'll see what happens.
What do I need to do in Cricut Design Space?
You just need to pick glitter iron-on setting.
Okay.
And that's it.
I don't need to reverse it or do anything like that?
No, because you basically you reversed the reverse.
Yeah, it's weird. You're unmirroring the mirror, if that makes sense.
That does make sense.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so now we have our artwork all done. Let me just double check. We're good on the size and everything is nice going on in software. So from this screen, this was mirrored before because we were doing the print. So now what I'm going to do before I get to the cutting is I'm going to unmirror this design, which will just orient the actual baseball logo the right way. Okay. So for me, we have a little convenient test cut option inside software. We also have an area test, so I can ensure that that cut is going not to fall off of my material or out of the cutting area. But for this, we don't really need to do anything. I'm just going to simply hit send to cutter. And what you'll see in real time now, I'm going to say to everybody out there, if for whatever reason we do fail, I'm going to show you kind of the work through of fixing it. And if for whatever reason these fail, we always got more cuts. We always got more to do. So I'm going to go ahead and go to return, hit OK. And on the cutter, the first thing that you'll see is it tries to register the first mark. Now, because that's a little faded, you'll see that it failed. Okay, so here's what I can do on the touch screen. I can simply bring the arrow for the actual registration mark down, and I can move it around this little screen because it's a true camera registering. And what I can do is, now that it's sort of in frame, I can keep bringing that arrow down until I find the corner of my registration mark, hit OK. And once it registers, or once it attempts to register that mark, and sometimes, again, like we just experienced twice, we had a little bit of a failure. So let me go ahead, stop that cut, bring it out ever so slightly, and I'm going to show you a quick little trick that you can use. And some of you that have done silhouette probably have done this many, many a times, where you can actually mark the edge of that registration mark. So I'm going to take a marker, and I'm really only just worried about getting the corner of this registration mark and seeing if that works. There we go. All right, so let's go ahead and set this up one more time.
Can I pop in really fast? Angie, on your mat, where are you? Are you placing yours in the upper right corner or upper left corner?
Yeah. Yes.
Mine doesn't seem to want to read the registration marks up there for some reason.
Does yours have an arrow? Your arrow should be in the upper left.
It's in the upper left.
Okay.
I just don't know why it's deciding to read the registration marks like 1 inch in from where the 1 inch in from where the registration marks actually are.
I know what you did wrong.
What did I do wrong?
Cut it down.
I did cut it down.
Yeah, you shouldn't have done that.
Good to know.
A full sheet. Yeah.
Cool.
All right. So I got my first one was approved. The cutter said, you know what? I approve you fixing that first registration mark. We're going to do that to the second one. Just enough. And really what the cutter is trying to find is it's trying to find that corner of that registration mark. It's not really concerned about the entire mark. It's really just trying to align those 4 points on the end so that it can then cut, obviously, what's in the middle. So, Corey, you and I are going through the same thing right now, sister.
And I'm done cutting, so.
And you're already
I'm
done.
just waiting on you all.
You beat me already. This
I'm
is
trying
crazy.
to stitch mine in just to see if it might work anyway.
Yeah.
See?
One of mine, I thought I was going to have to color it with the Sharpie, and I didn't, just to see, and it actually worked. So
that's perfect. Yeah. And you know what? Sometimes that's happened. That's happened to me every once in a great while. You go to try to register one, and you know what? Right now, this cutter, as you can see, it's really like blown out. So sometimes with the studio lights, it affects it. Yes. But like you can see, there's always a workaround. There's always a fix. There's always something really simple we can do to make these work really, really well. So.
So someone said, thank you, Corey, for showing us what not to do.
You're welcome, Corey. I always like when the other
second that. I'll second that, though.
So I'll say on the Cricut, don't like if you have a smaller thing like Corey, you're gonna have to like leave it the whole thing. If that makes sense? Like if you cut anywhere around it, it's gonna look for the registration mark where it's supposed to be, not where you cut it to.
That makes sense.
Yep.
So
All
Okay.
right, I'm gonna give this another shot. I'm gonna put myself on mute though.
So we don't hear screaming. Is that what you're
the
saying?
third time's a charm, Corey.
Hey, listen, third time's a charm for me too, apparently. So I do want to show you on the overhead. You can see I have two different types of registration marks. This one I just kind of colored in really quick with a Sharpie just to keep it even. This one, I didn't even pay attention to the whole registration mark. I just did a small corner so that it could find those 4 points. And you can see the accuracy, even with me having to make adjustments to this. I mean, there is virtual, well, hold on, let me not lie. Let me put it up against something darker. There you go. There is zero zero white space in that whole image, which is really nice.
And I'll let me pull mine up here. And this is the Cricut cut, and yeah, it works great.
That's perfect.
You do it right, Corey. I'm just kidding.
Also, I realized too that this print was not vibrant at all that I have, so, but it's okay. Made it work. There we go. Peel that around, and you can see that all peels off super easy. And now we have a perfectly registered. Angie and I have perfectly registered designs. Like, we don't have to worry now about, is there white space? Are we misregistering? Or is any of that kind of stuff going on? And here's the cool part is, number one, I can store this for later. I can transfer this now using like a high-tech transfer mask, or because it's all one piece, I can simply peel this whole design now off this backing, and I can just lay it down on my garment and apply it from there. So let's go ahead and grab this off. There we go. So just like that, now I have my whole thing. I can just heat apply this. So I'll go ahead and, are you cool if I heat apply?
Yeah.
Mine?
Yeah.
I did it, guys. I did it.
Look, she did it.
I put it on my mat
Nice.
like an inch over and was able to get it to cut properly.
You saved it. Yay.
I love it.
This has been pressed once with inkjet. It's been pressed twice with sublimation. It's off this mat 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna ask a couple questions here, Patrick. It says, Patrick, having no white, was that more because of the inset instead of offset?
Correct. So partially, so there's two things. Number one, I actually cut a little bit further into the pink, which is like the outside border of this design, a little bit further than I wanted to. But yes, utilizing that inset is going to help to prevent some of those white spaces from being so prevalent. So if for whatever reason, you know, for this Juliet in our studio, it's very controlled. I calibrate this thing regularly. But if your cutter at home has a little miscalibration, sometimes utilizing the inset as opposed to adding, again, that like extended color or extended border will be more beneficial for your cut, and, you know, saves you space too. If I have to add a larger portion of my design, that's going to obviously take up more space, as opposed to being able to bring that cut line just a little bit further into the actual border of my image itself. So yes, partially because of the inset, partially because, you know, the machine, make sure your machines, regardless of what you're using, are calibrated all the time. That's also a big pro tip that I think a lot of people don't think of when you're doing print then cut in any facet, whether we're doing sublimation or you're doing prints at home, sticker material. I feel like a lot of times we forget to calibrate our machines, and then we get frustrated when things don't line up appropriately, you know?
You know, what's really fun is when you're about to go on a live and your Cricut says, it's time to calibrate.
Oh, no. No, that's never
right
fun.
before this
Yeah.
video. So my Cricut has been calibrated really recently.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I calibrated mine like last Thursday, so
Okay.
definitely was a calibrated thing. The only other thing I was going to say is, like, when you peel it off of that backing, thin areas, just be really careful. Like, you don't want to rip this piece. That was the only other thing I was going to say. Like my ears, I went really slow and peeled them off carefully.
Yeah. Yep. I'm going to actually, just because, for the sake of showing this too, I'm going to use this other print that I had, just because I feel like the color came out way better for me. And I like the final result to be cutesy, you know? So I'm going to use this one here. So I have these, I have like these little hoodie bags. Oh, look at that. See, that looks really cute.
I made a thing. See, I mess up a lot so that the people in the comments are all like, yay, Corey. Well done.
Good for you. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
That's, I realize that our audiences have become like our positive reinforcement that we need.
Absolutely. They are my dopamine. So thanks, everyone.
And when I pressed, I added Teflon sheet over the top. Is that the right thing to do, Patrick?
Yeah. It should always, it's really that big portion of this is really just to protect your heat press. It's really not, because if you have a material that's slightly exposed to like the upper platen, you can have tendency for either the adhesive to kind of spill out a little bit. Let me kind of set this up on the press while I'm talking. But for the adhesive to kind of spill a little bit, which can affect obviously your material sticking to your press. But also if you're doing sublimation, especially, even if it's a post-press sublimated design like this, I still always like to give it a little bit of coverage just to ensure that I'm not going to have any ink bleeding through anything and affect my press. Because remember, with sublimation, what's really great about it is you get very beautiful, vibrant prints. But I'm also under the impression that most people don't want those beautiful, vibrant prints on every single thing they press afterwards, if that makes sense. So
we still have 385 on this, so about 5 seconds.
About 5 seconds or so. Yep. Because also to remember that material is loose. So we're not combating having to also have it loose enough to rip off of a carrier sheet. It just kind of applies as is. So I'm going to go ahead and put that there.
Somebody asked if it matters what type of sublimation paper we use. It doesn't. Whatever's your favorite. I think I might have a sub in my printer right now. I'm just kind of going through the giant stack of different types of paper I've used.
I was actually testing X-Tool has a sublimation paper out, and I was actually testing it. So this was X-Tool sublimation.
No, I think actually mine is oh my gosh. Where's John from, Angie?
Oh, Makerflow.
Makerflow. I'm using Makerflow.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I was like, where's he from?
And I was just introduced to A-Sub when we first started. So that's just always been, it's like what we have in stock upstairs. So I usually use that.
I love A-Sub. It's just like, I just try to test different ones. So when someone asks, I can say, oh yeah, that one works fine.
Yeah, that works.
I really haven't had one that works terribly, to be perfectly honest.
I haven't either.
I did do a test where I tested 5 or 6. It's only on my blog, not my YouTube channel. A-Sub wasn't the best for me. TextPrint was, but that was with my old Epson. And it obviously depends on your particular printer, your conditions, all the different things. And I also tried copy paper, and you could because people are like, I just use copy paper. It is so apparent how much more ink soaks into a piece of
muted,
sublimation paper. Sublimation paper just basically holds more ink than copy paper. That's really the big difference, I think. And so you can use copy paper, but your prints are going to look dumb.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. I wish they, kind of like how, so I use Buttercraft. Here's mine right here. I use Buttercraft for like the sticker material that we use in-house sometimes, like when we're doing content or whatever it may be. And I like that they designate paper or specific, like a specific sticker material to a printer. So like I have the EcoTank material. I wish that sublimation would get more into that world, but it's so universal, I feel like, for the most part. You can kind of use any paper in any type of printer. So here I go to the overhead.
And what type of bag did you use there?
So this bag right here is courtesy to our friends over at Sanmar. This is actually a Portland company, Fleece Core. These are like a hoodie bag. It's kind of cool. It has this like little hoodie pocket to it as well. So it's a fun little bag to have.
Oh my gosh, that's really cute.
So cute.
Yeah, I like these ones, especially at like trade shows and stuff. We used to use these. We've used them for a few different times for giveaways or just in the booth because it really is nice. It like a regular drawstring, and then you also have, I don't know the pocket use case when it's behind you, but if you wear your stuff like this, then pocket
maybe
use case.
People are really bendy. They can keep their hands warm. If you're going to like a Mrs. Incredible Elastigirl style, then maybe you can reach back there and get it. But maybe if you're Inspector Gadget.
I did give them one tip for this that I would love to see for an update is like have an actual hood on it as well. I think it would be so funny to have everything kind of in one little bag. But this is just all reclaimed material that they have in material that were like miscuts that they turn into bags. So I think they do an awesome job. Oh, Myrna's in here. She's got a question that she's seeing too.
Someone asked about my bunny ghost. It is in fact a bunny ghost creative fabric.
I love it.
So cute.
What was that question?
Asked what they should do if they get the ink on the top plates.
Oh, that's a really good question. So Myrna just fielded a question. Is that over on Facebook?
Yeah.
Okay, over on Facebook. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I can see it. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, somebody just asked how do you get the ink off of the upper platen of your heat press? That is the one piece of information that if these two ladies have that, I will turn it over to them. I'm actually not 100% sure because I've never personally run into it myself. I've always been very protectant, so I've never had to do it. So I don't know if you guys have any pro tips on that. I've just always tried to repress on like parchment or whatever I could to get it out.
I'm miss protected paper because of this, but what I would do is get a piece of 100% polyester fabric, like very cheap fabric, and just press and press in another area and press in another area until it stops coming off. Like that's all you can do.
Yep.
And
or
I've done it. So it actually works. I've done it before because, you know, apparently I'm just mistakes today. I've done it actually on my mug press, which is even harder to do. So what I did was I just kept wrapping butcher paper or butcher paper or parchment paper. I think it was butcher paper around a mug. And I just kept pressing that mug until I could not see. And it worked. It just wasted a lot of butcher paper in my time.
Well, and for anybody out there, white polyester and press on it. Johan had said too, that's a great way. So the alignment with Angie as well. But that's the other thing too, is like, I think people believe that if it's sublimated onto your platen, that's there forever. And you can fix it through this method. But again, it is pressing that out, because every time you press out that design, which is now happily married with the upper platen of a heat press, every time that you do that, you're also gassing out that ink a little bit more and a little bit more. So each press you have, it'll be more and more faded until you get to the point where you can't see it at all. And it doesn't mean that it's completely gone off of the platen, but you know it's not going to transfer onto more garments and things like that.
Yeah, right. You may, like Jen mentioned, you might still see the stain on your platen, but it's not transferring.
Yeah, which, fingers crossed, I haven't stained this thing yet.
For the platen, you might try, they make a cleaner that's made for irons, and you can actually use that on a heat press platen. So you might try that. I've seen some dirty heat press platens.
Yeah.
And someone asked where I got my bag, and this is literally just like a cotton tote from Amazon. I bought like a huge, like, whatever you want to call it, like a big bulk pack of them, because I was making them for something else. And I was like, oh, that's an Easter tote now.
I like that. Yeah. So you're going like Easter vibes. I like that. Really quick too. So the other thing is, as well as just one last little pro tip for protecting that platen, is for some of you out there that have the clam style heat press. So more of your conventional heat press, not necessarily like an easy press or home iron. They do, for most presses, do have Teflon wrap sheets that go over the top of your press. I always recommend to people, have one of those on, whether you're doing sublimation or regular materials, because then you just know that if anything were to happen, you take that on off, and it's easier to replace that than a $300, $400, $500, $600 or even $1,000 heat press, right? So it's a lot easier to protect yourself ahead of time so you don't have to. Yeah, sublimation is a gas, and will gas out with high heat, is what Johanna just commented in as well.
I do know that sometimes that Teflon and sublimation don't get along, so it really depends too on your blank and how much moisture there is in the air. The Teflon likes to hold moisture. So if you're doing something like a tile, and it has a very long press time, and I don't know, I've had issues with moisture in tiles and slates and those sorts of things, I wouldn't necessarily use the Teflon there, because it's going to try and hold in that moisture. So
is the tile, are you talking more like ceramic? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, ceramic or slate. I feel like I get these. I mean, I live in it's pouring rain outside right now. And I end up with moisture issues, especially with like the sublimatable slates. So they have that sublimation coating on there. It ends up looking a little bubbly almost. And I think that's a moisture issue. And so I found that there's some things where I'm like, maybe the Teflon isn't the best idea just for that one. But you can always, that's why we have all of the different types of butcher paper. You just put that on, and that should protect you. But so if you are having issues with the Teflon protector on, maybe try it without. Make sure you're using other protective paper though.
Yeah, that's awesome. I do have a question for you though too. For like the sublimation slate and stuff like that, do you find that they hold color really well? Like, do they hold color well, as opposed to like I know they have some that are like either a spray or even like more like a Mod Podge that you would put on there?
Absolutely.
You need to buy the ones that say like they're made for sublimation worthy.
Okay, that's a good distinction for the audience, because I think a lot of times we just buy thinking that, oh, this is going to work. Yeah.
So
Andy and I have no recommendation for a spray that works.
Yes,
we've both tested a lot of them, and none of them have held up to sublimation specific blanks.
That's awesome. Good. Well, that's a good note to make too. Cool. Well, this is it. This is the whole project. We've been able to show you how to, well, we showed you even how to kind of import and set up your design, but really fast, convenient ways to like get perfect registration when we are sublimating onto heat transfer material. So this, again, this works with any of those heat transfer materials that are sublimatable. Everything's listed for you right on the website at CaesarNA.com. So you can always see it, be able to play with it, and, you know, ask questions if you have questions.
Yeah, we used the rainbow white today, and I must say that's one of my favorites. I'll just say that. I do like your Easy Subli though, so we could use the same thing with Easy Subli.
Yes. So the same method, you can do it with Easy Subli. Honestly, it probably would give you a lot better results than, again, that old way of pre-cutting your contour and then having to line it up. This works with any of those materials. And actually, Johan just dropped for us too, if anybody does need it, we also do have multi-purpose paper as well. So if you guys ever need it, you can always reach out to info@CaesarNA.com and we'll get you connected with the appropriate sources to make sure all of that information is given to you too.
Got it. So I made a whole video about like 2 ways to use Easy Subli, and now there's a third way to use Easy Subli.
Now there's a third way. Hey, maybe a collaborative updated video.
Exactly.
I'm down for it.
Another question from Myrna who says, will the ink stick to the Teflon sheet when pressing? Yes, it will stick to the Teflon sheet. So that's why really butcher paper or protective paper of some sort is better, something that's disposable, because the second that gets ink on it, you're done.
Yeah.
I do have a video on my YouTube channel of when to use Teflon, butcher, and parchment paper. So that's a video I have where I kind of broke down for all the different types of crafting that you might do. You know, Teflon works really well with HTV, butcher paper works really well for sublimation, white toner, DTF, I talked about all of them. So
I will say that like I used the Teflon sheet back over the top when I pressed this HTV a few seconds ago, and we only pressed it for 5 seconds. So it didn't get hot enough to regas out. So if you're not, for this project, laying it over the top at the end was not a problem because we didn't get it hot enough to regas. So.
Yeah.
Right. And then somebody else said, can I use pink butcher paper? I wouldn't. You can test it, but anything that has color in it has the possibility of transferring to your project. So
yeah. Oh, that's another good distinction though too. Any butcher paper that has a glossy side to it, no go. Yep. I would not use those as well. Would not even touch them. They have tendency to be able to melt under high heat on that one side, and that can definitely jeopardize your overall result. But I did what everybody wanted me to do. And they said, Patrick, you're at Caesar. You guys have more cover sheets. You can break one. So what I did is I tried to sublimate onto an actual Teflon sheet to kind of show you
what's going to happen here.
Let's see.
All right. So
and if you ever want to ask a question about wax paper, put that wax paper back in your kitchen. It does not belong in your
does not belong. So you can see very subtly here. And actually, let me see if I can get it on the heat press. I mean, I'm sorry, the cutter camera. Nope, that's a little blown out for me. Okay. Yeah, on this one here, you can really see like the actual design itself kind of pressed into this Teflon. So again, now this will potentially transfer onto each of the designs that I do on after this. So it's really important that I press this out to get this out. Or in this case, Teflon's cheap. You just ditch it, get a new one, and make your life a lot easier. So I will say also, just because we had just launched the tool, this whole time that I cut, when I did cut with the glitter, I'm using our brand new deep cut blade to actually cut the glitter too, which I felt like this is the first time that I've actually used it to do this method. I felt like that actually helped a lot with that accuracy too, which was good.
Best nonstick to use for HTV to keep it from sticking. So would you use a Teflon sheet over HTV
sheet or parchment paper? Parchment paper is coated in silicone. So that's why it's nonstick. It's just Teflon lasts longer than parchment.
And something we didn't talk about, Patrick, is the heat mask if they have multiple pieces. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Are you talking about like if they like transfer mask?
Yeah. So if you have like 2 different easy Subli pieces using like a heat mask.
I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on this too. I say for me, I typically am using 1 mask per design. Okay. Yeah. I do know that there have been people that have used it more than one time. I've never had great results with it. So I tell people all the time, like, just use 1 sheet per 1 design, because you don't want any risk of that transferring on over to the actual mask. And then now it's transferring on other designs. And there's something in the sublimation world that a lot of you will hear at one point in time. It's called ghosting. And that is also another example of ghosting, is that when I'm pressing onto one sheet, and that's exactly what we did here, we ghosted the design onto our Teflon sheet. So what you could have is you perfectly aligned registered design, and then now you have this small offset or this small whatever offshoot of that same design. So what is a heat mask? All heat mask is it's basically your transfer mask that will transfer your design from your page on over to your garment, the same way you would apply, say, a sticker material, a print and cut image, anything like that. It's just simply this, the carrier sheet is what we're talking about.
It's transfer tape for heat HTV.
Perfect. Exactly. That's exactly what it is. But I will say with the distinction, because I do hear that too from time to time, it is a heat transferable cover sheet. Okay. Because a lot of people, they'll use like the Siser grid, the transfer tape, but that's used for a PSV. Then they melt it and they're calling us and they're like, hey, what the heck happened to this?
Especially used. It's like especially designed for high heat, a heat resistant transfer tape.
Exactly. Yeah. And those are usually indicated. For us at Siser, we call them TTD. So that's typically what we'll refer to them. So you'll hear TTD high tack mask or a low tack. That's another nice thing for anybody out there, depending on what project you're doing. A lot of times those come in different adhesives. So you'll have a high tack version and a low tack version, depending on what you're doing. And especially with a material like Easy Subli, you'll actually have a more porous transfer sheet, because Easy Subli is kind of softer, is a softer, thicker, more porous material. So it really requires those air channels and cavities to be able to transfer that on over. So transfer tape for HTV, right? Yes. Yeah, Chris nailed it. Transfer tape for HTV.
And Kelly asked again, what glitter did you use? We used the Siser Rainbow Glitter HTV.
Yep, rainbow white glitter. Yep,
rainbow white. You can use any of their sublimatable products for this project. Generally, I have decided after doing much sublimation that I just prefer white. Like I can sublimate on like a sparkly pink tumbler, but it just doesn't look as good because that pink goes through, because sublimation ink is transparent. So imagine like your sublimation ink is a highlighter where you can see through it. So if you're thinking, oh, I can put this sublimation on black, you can't. If you highlight black, you're not gonna be able to see it. So that's kind of, I feel like, the best way I look at the color, being able to see the color through the ink in sublimation.
Yeah, and one thing that Johan had mentioned earlier is the neon green. He loves the neon green glitter because it really does pop beautifully, especially, if you're making like a simple black outline contour design, it really shows up well. I will say though, if you do have a design, so we're using, say, neon green glitter, if I do have a design where it has neon green in it, just cancel that color out of your design altogether, because it won't show up. So that is the one thing. When you are using different colors of material, that may also make you have to adjust some of your design. So as Corey alluded to, we have now a method where you can cut perfectly around your design. So there's no need to necessarily do different colors if you don't want to. You can just stick to a white base, because that's what most colors in the industry and in general, if you do large format print and cut, it's a white base material. If you do DTF, it's a white base and an adhesive material that's then laid on. If you do screen print, there's a white base. Everything starts with a white base to allow that color vibrancy and allow for some of that opacity to not be so aggressive too. So those are also things to think of.
If you are using a color as your base for sublimation, I think black designs work great. So if you just have a fully black logo or black design, fantastic. You can put black on red, and it works. But if you want something that's vibrant and full of color, you want that white base.
Yeah. And the reason I say that is that we did a bunch of little rubber duckies on like that neon green, and it was just like the orange beak and then the outline of the duck, and it all worked perfectly, but it was very much to that. It's very simplistic color. You're not adding a bunch to it, because you're going to lose most of that in there for sure.
Yeah.
So Courtney had a good question. Does it have to be a certain kind of HTV to press on? And first of all, you can head to the Siser website and they have a full list of sublimatable products that they carry. So you can choose from any of those. But she asked, can you use it with infusible ink? So I'm going to answer that in a different way. You can use it with alternate forms of sublimation. So infusible ink is an example. Siser makes a great line of sublimation markers. So you can also sublimate on all of their products with their sublimation markers. So you can draw with these. If you don't have a sublimation printer, you can still make projects like this. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. And also too, just to clarify on that a little bit, is certain sublimation inks or certain, I will say, sublimation processes, which infusible ink is a little bit different than your standard. certain ones do have more of a perfect marry environment. And that's why if you're using infusible ink and infusible ink materials to actually sublimate on, that's why that color comes out so vibrant. And maybe you won't get the same results on other sublimatable materials, but just know too that sometimes when these things are made, like for us, we manufactured an ink that was specific for the Sawgrass printer. Well, that ink won't work in an Epson printer because there's a lot of data points and a lot of things that are obviously different about those two environments. So that's the other thing too, is that if you do get into a world of like infusible ink, it is best to try to use those products as well in most cases, and not cross-pollinate too much until you get to the world of like open sublimation, which is what we're kind of doing. It doesn't matter if you have an Epson, a Brother, a Canon. You can print with just regular sublimation ink onto a paper that accepts it and transfer it onto a material that will then accept that design or that ink. Yeah.
I will say one of the things I tell people all the time with sublimation is that it is up to a bajillion different factors, whether or not something is going to work. It depends on your blank. It depends on the type of ink you're using, the type of paper you're using, the humidity in your craft space, the phase of the moon. I swear, it's like if you're not getting a good result, there are a lot of things that could be going wrong, and it's not you necessarily. I mean, today it was me. Let's be real. It was me today. I didn't paper.
I tell people all that. Go ahead.
I do feel like people don't understand. A lot of times they think sublimation is going to be really easy, like using a cutting machine. It's going to be like the same result every single time. And, you know, there are bad blank manufacturers. If you buy 6,000 keychains on Amazon for $10, they may not look very good, guys. So I think it's one of those things that you have to go into sublimation knowing that you're going to have to test, you're going to have to play around, you're going to have to experiment and make sure, you know, to get the best images. And if you go into that with a much more open mind, you're going to have a much better look at sublimation in general.
Yeah, to that point, I was going to say sometimes with sublimation, it's like trying to start a fire in a water park with two rocks. Like it happens, guys. And you just have to go through. Sometimes I feel like we get into these processes and it's very easy to see like the three of us teach something and say, you know what, I got this. I'll nail it right now. And that's what we appreciate, is because it means that we're being very descriptive and over informative and all that. But sometimes your environment will be very different. All three of us are in kind of semi-controlled environments for the most part. I'm in a studio. They're both in studio spaces as well. So sometimes it can work really well for us, and you might try it and you got to make a couple little changes or navigate the waters a little differently. But that's the thing. At the end of the day, as long as we're all treading the water together, nobody's drowning and we're all good. We're all good here. So yeah. Cool. Let's see. Is there anything? Just trying to see if there's any other questions that are coming in.
The only other thing was like, is it just glitter vinyl or can we use white regular vinyl? So what I'm going to say is whatever product you're going to use. So we use rainbow white. That's because this has some polyester content in it, like the material itself, DHTV. So don't deviate from the list on the Siser website. They have done their homework. They know that it is going to work with sublimation. So don't just go playing around with just because the material is white doesn't necessarily mean it'll work for sublimation. It does have
to pick up like a roll of Dollar Tree vinyl and think it's going to work. I mean, you can test it. I mean, Angie and I are all about testing, right? You can test it. It just depends on how much you want to risk your machines, you know, your heat press. If you're willing to mess up, like Angie and I are both willing to mess up. We are willing to like put stuff through the test to make sure it works. And that's why we do this. But you just have to know too, like you may be out some money because it didn't work, and that's fine. You just need to know going into it.
Yep. For sure. And I will say too, my buddy Joe did an awesome little video on all of the different sublimatable materials, where we also did test a lot of those for you, so we could show you some of the negative results as well. So over on the Siser North America YouTube channel, somewhere in there, if you just type in sublimation heat transfer vinyl, that video should pop up for you as well, where he did a really great job going through each of the materials that will accept it and showing actual examples of what those end results look like. Because you will find like a glitter is a white base, so that's going to hold color really, really well. But we have other materials like holographic pearl, which is a semi-transparent material. That's not going to show color as rich, but it's going to show it in a way that you might like. You may love the more transparent feel of that design as opposed to having a really poppy, vibrant color. Secondly, too, if you're using other colors of HTV, you may like the natural color that's in there, not wanting to use it, so on and so forth. So that's also another thing too, is like seeing it and seeing us do it and test it and break it for you guys so you don't have to, is only part of the equation. You still got to get in, Still got to get yourself a hold of some glitter and some sublimation ink or whatever it may be to get these things accomplished, and try it out and be okay with failing. That's the other thing. Stuff happens. You saw this fail twice and I fixed it easy, right? Stuff happens and you move from it. And ultimately the goal is to get you guys much more beautiful prints and get you to the next stage of your craft journey, or even wanting to start that business for yourself. So we're here for you is what I'm saying. I'm just throwing it out there. We're here for you.
We are here for you. You saw me mess up way too many times in this video. You know that it happens. And but I like messing up so that you guys don't have to mess up.
For sure.
We mess up so you don't have to. So I was going to say that Patrick has a full video all about sublimation on different Siser products within Sublimation Camp. So if you have your all access pass to Sublimation Camp, be sure to check that out. Like, this whole live series is about using your all access pass. So if you have that all access pass, be sure to check out that full video so you can check out everything he's making in that video. And if you don't have an all access pass, they're still available. But of course, Sublimation Camp 2025 is coming up. Like, get excited, people. But if you want to get an all access pass for the 2024, we do have a coupon code. It's GetCrafty8, and that's through March 5th, and it's $20 off the all access pass. And that's sublimationcamp.com. If you're on YouTube, I put a QR code up in the corner as well if you want to scan that.
Nice. And this is going to be our last craft challenge for Sublimation Camp 2024. We're probably moving the date just a little bit. So if you're used to it being in May, we're moving it back to the summer a little bit. So don't freak out when you haven't heard about it. It's coming. So this is your last opportunity to save on 2024 Sublimation Camp and everything we have in there. We also will be doing 2025 as well as some other stuff coming up. So if you guys are excited, keep an eye on your inboxes on Monday. It's very exciting.
Yeah, there's some more camp news coming Monday.
I may or may not know what it is, so I'm going to keep my mouth shut.
Pretty sure you know what it is.
All right, guys. There are a lot of questions on how to start. Angie and I have a million videos. Patrick has a million videos. Siser has a million videos. We got a lot of videos on how to start. So we're finishing up today, but head to our channels and we can help you out. Ask us questions. We all answer our comments and happy to help.
Yeah, and Roseanne, Sublimation Camp will be in the summer. So I think we're going to go with the July date. So, all right. So thank you, Patrick, for joining us today. It was fun.
Thank you.
We made some cute projects.
Yes.
We learned all about a cool technique.
Got through a lot of mistakes that Patrick and I were making.
That's all right. Hey, I'm willing to take this journey with you, so I'm good.
And this video will be on all 3 of our YouTube channels. If you want to go back and watch it, go ahead, watch it from all of our channels, because then we all get advertising dollars.
Right. All right. Thank you all. And yeah, we will see you at the next Sublimation Camp, I guess.
All right, friends.
Awesome. Bye, everyone.